I'd rather chew glass than touch that cow again tonight. That's what I heard my future son-in-law say to his buddy just hours before the engagement party. They laughed like it was the funniest joke in the world. My daughter had no idea she was marrying a snake. I smiled, excused myself from the hallway, and started planning exactly how I would destroy him. If you're watching this, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. This is my story of revenge. It was a Friday evening in late September, and the leaves had just started turning gold and red across our property in Madison County, Ohio. I adjusted my tie in the hallway mirror of the Riverside Country Club, where we were hosting the engagement party for my daughter Rachel and her fiancé Marcus. The venue was elegant, with white tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. Everything was perfect. At least, that's what I thought. I had stepped away from the main hall to use the restroom when I heard voices coming from the smoking patio. The door was cracked open, and I recognized Marcus's voice immediately. That smooth, confident tone that had charmed my daughter for the past 2 years. Seriously, once we're married, I'll have access to everything. The old man's construction company, the 30 acres of land, the equipment yard. We're talking millions, brother. His friend whistled low. And Rachel? She doesn't suspect anything? Marcus laughed, a cold sound that made my blood freeze. Rachel believes everything I tell her. She's so desperate to be loved. It's almost too easy. I'd rather chew glass than touch that cow again tonight. But hey, a few more months of playing the devoted fiancé, and I'll own half of everything her daddy built. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. My hands were shaking. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. What about the prenup? His friend asked. Already handled. I convinced Rachel that prenups are unromantic, that they show a lack of trust. She actually apologized to me when her father suggested one. Can you believe that? She apologized for her dad trying to protect her. More laughter. I heard glasses clinking. I wanted to burst through that door and beat him senseless. Every instinct in my body screamed for violence. But I was 64 years old, and I'd learned long ago that the best revenge isn't hot. It's cold. It's calculated. And it's devastating. I straightened my tie, took a deep breath, and walked back to the party with a smile on my face. Nobody noticed the storm brewing behind my eyes. The engagement party continued without incident. I watched Marcus work the room like a politician, shaking hands, kissing cheeks, telling everyone how lucky he was to be joining our family. My daughter Rachel hung on his arm, radiant in her blue dress, her eyes filled with love every time she looked at him. It broke my heart. Rachel was 29, my only child. Her mother had passed away from cancer when Rachel was just 15, and I had raised her alone ever since. She had worked alongside me at Peterson Construction since she graduated college, learning the business from the ground up. 2 years ago, I had made her a full partner, putting her name on everything. The company, the land, the equipment. It was her inheritance, given early because I wanted to see her enjoy it while I was still alive. Now I understood why Marcus had been so supportive of that decision. I approached them near the dessert table. Rachel's face lit up when she saw me. Dad, isn't this wonderful? Marcus's speech earlier was so beautiful. I forced a smile. It was something, all right. Marcus extended his hand. Walter, thank you again for everything. This party, your blessing, welcoming me into the family. It means the world to me. I shook his hand, looking directly into his eyes. Family is everything to me, Marcus. I'd do anything to protect it. Something flickered in his expression, just for a second. Then his salesman's smile returned. As would I, sir. As would I. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my study, surrounded by photos of Rachel growing up, her first day of school, her high school graduation, the day she signed the partnership papers at Peterson Construction. In every photo, she was smiling, trusting, innocent. I pulled out my phone and called an old friend. Frank Delgado had been a private investigator for 30 years before retiring. We'd worked together on a few construction disputes, tracking down contractors who'd stolen materials or faked invoices. He was thorough, discreet, and absolutely ruthless when he needed to be. "Frank, it's Walter Peterson. I need your help." "Walter, it's midnight. This better be good. It's about my daughter. I think she's about to marry a con man." There was a pause. Then, "Tell me everything." I told him what I'd overheard. Every word. When I finished, Frank was quiet for a long moment. "That's bad, Walter. Real bad. But overhearing a conversation isn't evidence. We need more." "Then get me more. Whatever it takes. Whatever it costs. Give me 2 weeks." The next morning, I drove to Rachel's apartment downtown. She lived in a nice building near the river, the kind of place a successful businesswoman deserved. Marcus had moved in 6 months ago, and I noticed his car wasn't in the parking lot. Good. Rachel answered the door in sweatpants and a messy bun, still glowing from the party the night before. "Dad, what a surprise." "Come in. I just made coffee." I sat at her kitchen table while she poured 2 mugs. The apartment was cluttered with wedding magazines and fabric samples. A large whiteboard on the wall had wedding countdown, 47 days written in pink marker. "Honey," I said carefully, "I want to talk to you about something." She sat across from me, her eyes curious. "What's wrong? You have your serious face on." I took a deep breath. "How do you tell your daughter that the man she loves is a fraud? That everything she believes is a lie? It's about Marcus. I have some concerns." Her expression immediately hardened. "Dad, we've been over this. The prenup thing was embarrassing enough. Marcus felt humiliated that you didn't trust him. It's not about the prenup. Last night, I overheard him talking to one of his friends." I told her what I'd heard. The words, the laughter, the plans. When I finished, Rachel was silent. Then she started shaking her head. No, that's not possible. You must have misheard. Or maybe they were joking. Guys say stupid things when they're drinking." "Honey, I know what I heard." She stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over her coffee. "Dad, I love Marcus. He loves me. I'm not going to let your paranoia ruin my happiness. You've never liked him, and now you're making up stories." "Rachel, I would never lie to you about something like this." "Then you're wrong." Her voice cracked. "Maybe you're getting old. Maybe you heard something out of context. But Marcus is not a con man. He's the man I'm going to marry, and I need you to accept that." I stood up slowly, feeling every year of my age. "I'm just asking you to wait. Just a few weeks. Let me look into some things." "Look into what? His background? His finances?" "That's insulting, Dad, to both of us." She walked to the door and opened it. "I think you should go." I paused at the doorway. "I love you, sweetheart. Everything I do is because I love you. If you loved me, you'd trust my judgment." She closed the door before I could respond. I drove home with a heavy heart. My daughter didn't believe me. She thought I was paranoid, jealous, losing my mind, and maybe she would keep thinking that until it was too late. But I wasn't giving up. Over the next 2 weeks, Frank Delgado worked his magic. He followed Marcus everywhere. To his office at Pinnacle Financial Advisors downtown, to his lunch meetings, to his evening activities that he told Rachel were client dinners. Meanwhile, I went about my normal routine at Peterson Construction. I supervised projects, signed contracts, met with suppliers. But every night, I sat in my study, waiting for Frank's calls. The first breakthrough came on day 5. "Walter, I found something interesting. Marcus doesn't actually work at Pinnacle Financial. I mean, he has a desk there, but he's not employed. He's paying rent for office space to make it look legit. The guy's not a financial advisor. He doesn't even have a license." My stomach dropped. "What does he do for money then?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. Give me more time." Day 8. Another call. He's got a woman on the side. Name's Victoria Chen. Works at a real estate development firm. They've been meeting at a hotel on the west side twice a week for at least 6 months. I've got photos. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. Keep going. Day 12. The final call. "Walter, you need to come see this. I found his previous victims. We met at a diner outside of town. The kind of place where nobody asks questions. Frank slid a thick folder across the table. Marcus Reynolds isn't even his real name. He was born Marcus Weber in Pennsylvania, changed his name 5 years ago after a fraud investigation that never went to trial. Lack of evidence, or so they said. I opened the folder. Inside were police reports, court documents, and printed photographs. Before you, there was a widow in Pittsburgh. Name was Dorothy Hancock, 72 years old. Marcus dated her daughter, got engaged, convinced them to add him to the family's restaurant business. Within 8 months, the restaurant was mortgaged to the hilt, and Marcus disappeared with over $300,000. The daughter had a nervous breakdown. She's still in therapy. Frank pointed to another document. Before that, there was a family in Scranton. Small trucking company. Same playbook. Romance the daughter. Charm the parents. Get access to the business. He nearly bankrupted them before they caught on. The father had a stroke from the stress. I felt my hands trembling. This wasn't just about money. This man destroyed families. There's more. Frank pulled out a USB drive. I managed to get close enough to record a conversation between Marcus and his girlfriend, Victoria. You need to hear this. He plugged the drive into his laptop and pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the diner. The old man suspects something. I could see it in his eyes at the engagement party. But Rachel doesn't believe him. She's completely on my side. Victoria's voice, amused. Poor little cow. She really thinks you love her? She's so desperate for affection, she'd believe anything. It's almost sad. But once we're married and I have control of the company, we'll bleed it dry and move on. Should take about a year, and then we can finally be together. No more pretending. No more pretending. Just us. And about $2 million in assets. The recording ended. I sat there, frozen. Frank collected his materials. That's what you're dealing with, Walter. A professional predator. He's done this before, and he'll do it again unless someone stops him. I paid Frank double his fee and drove home with the evidence locked in my briefcase. The question now was what to do with it. I couldn't just show Rachel. She hadn't believed me before, and she might claim the recordings were fake. I needed to be smarter than that. I needed to make her see the truth with her own eyes. The next day, I called my lawyer, George Mitchell. George was 70 years old, sharp as a tack, and had handled Peterson Construction's legal affairs for 3 decades. George, I need you to do something for me. Something unusual. I explained the situation. George listened without interrupting. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. That's quite a situation, Walter. What's your play? I want to set a trap. Something that forces Marcus to reveal himself. George was quiet for a moment. There might be a way. If we can get him to commit fraud on the record, with witnesses, we'd have grounds for criminal charges. But it's risky. If he suspects anything, he'll disappear like he did before. I'll take that risk. We spent the next week planning. George drew up a fake investment opportunity, something that would be irresistible to someone like Marcus. A land development deal worth millions, requiring a significant upfront commitment. The catch was that Rachel would need to sign off on it, using her authority as partner at Peterson Construction. I called Marcus directly, something I rarely did. Marcus, I've been thinking about our conversation at the engagement party, about how you wanted to be more involved in the family business. I could hear the surprise in his voice. Really? That's great to hear, Walter. I have an opportunity I'd like to discuss. A big one. But it needs to stay between us for now. Can you meet me at the office tomorrow morning? Absolutely. I'll be there. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Peterson Construction headquarters wearing his best suit and his most charming smile. I led him to the conference room where George was waiting. Marcus, this is George Mitchell, our corporate attorney. He's here to explain the deal. George laid out the fake investment. A consortium of developers wanted to build a mixed-use complex on the edge of town. Peterson Construction would be the lead contractor, but we needed to secure the land rights first. The investment required $200,000 up front, with projected returns of $5 million over 3 years. Marcus's eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. This sounds incredible. What do you need from me? Well, George said carefully, since Rachel is a full partner, she'd need to approve the investment. We need her signature on these documents by Friday. That shouldn't be a problem, Marcus said quickly. Rachel trusts my judgment on financial matters. I can walk her through it tonight. I nodded slowly. There's one more thing. The consortium wants assurance that Peterson Construction is committed. They're asking for collateral. What kind of collateral? The land. All 30 acres. We'd need to put it up as security for the investment. I watched Marcus carefully. A normal person would hesitate, would ask questions, would want to understand the risks. Marcus just smiled wider. That makes sense. Big opportunities require big commitments. Exactly. I slid a folder across the table. Here are the preliminary documents. Take them home, show them to Rachel, and get back to us by Thursday. Marcus grabbed the folder like it was made of gold. You won't regret this, Walter. I promise. He practically ran out of the building. That evening, I had another meeting. This one at a bar near the highway, with someone I'd found through Frank's investigation. His name was Thomas Hancock, Dorothy's son, the man whose mother and sister had been destroyed by Marcus. Thomas was in his 40s, with tired eyes and a 2-day beard. He ordered whiskey and drank it fast. So you're the next target, he said flatly. Lucky you. I know what he did to your family. I'm sorry. Thomas laughed bitterly. Sorry doesn't bring back $300,000. Sorry doesn't fix my mother's broken heart or my sister's depression. That man took everything from us and walked away free. The cops couldn't prove anything. The courts couldn't touch him. And now he's doing it again. I want to stop him, but I need your help. Thomas looked at me with something like hope. What do you need? Your testimony. In a courtroom, if it comes to that. I have recordings, photographs, documents. But a jury needs to see the human cost. They need to hear from someone who survived him. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I'll do it. For my sister, for my mother, and for your daughter, so she doesn't end up like us. We shook hands. Two strangers united by the same enemy. 2 days later, everything fell apart. Or rather, everything came together. Rachel called me, her voice shaking. Dad, can you come over? There's something I need to show you. I drove to her apartment, my heart pounding. When she opened the door, her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. I found something in Marcus's briefcase. She led me to the kitchen table, where papers were spread everywhere. The fake investment documents George had prepared. But also other things. Bank statements showing accounts I'd never seen. Emails between Marcus and Victoria, printed and highlighted. And photographs. Marcus with Victoria at restaurants, at hotels, holding hands like lovers. He left his briefcase open this morning, Rachel whispered. He was in the shower, and I saw my name on one of the documents. I started looking, and I couldn't stop. She held up a printed email. He's been planning this for 2 years, Dad, before he even met me. There are notes about our company, our finances, our family. It's like I was a target from the beginning. I pulled her into my arms as she started to sob. My little girl, my strong, capable daughter, broken by the truth. I didn't want to believe you, she cried. I thought you were just being overprotective. I'm so sorry, Dad. You have nothing to apologize for. He fooled a lot of people, but it's over now. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. What do we do? We make him pay. The next morning, we met with George Mitchell and a prosecutor named Sandra Walsh. Sandra was a formidable woman in her 50s, known throughout Ohio for taking down white-collar criminals. We laid out everything. The recordings, the photographs, the documents from Pennsylvania and Scranton, Thomas Hancock's willingness to testify, and most importantly, the fake investment documents that Marcus had eagerly taken, not knowing they were a trap. Sandra reviewed everything with cold efficiency. This is solid, very solid. Mr. Reynolds or Weber, or whatever he calls himself, has established a clear pattern of fraud. If your daughter is willing to cooperate, we can arrest him on multiple counts. Rachel nodded firmly. I'll do whatever it takes. There's one more thing, I said. I want him to know it was me. I want to see his face when he realizes he's been outsmarted. Sandra smiled thinly. That can be arranged. The arrest happened 3 days later. at a coffee shop downtown where Marcus was meeting with Victoria to celebrate. He thought he was about to close the biggest deal of his career. I was sitting at a corner table when the police walked in. Marcus saw me first. His face went from confused to concerned to terrified in about 3 seconds. He stood up, knocking over his coffee, and tried to run. 2 officers caught him before he made it to the door. "Marcus Weber, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and theft by deception. You have the right to remain silent." As they handcuffed him, Marcus looked at me with pure hatred. "You did this. You set me up." I walked over slowly, stopping just a few feet away. "No, son. You set yourself up. I just made sure you didn't get away with it this time." They dragged him out to the patrol car. Victoria was arrested too, screaming about lawyers and wrongful imprisonment. The whole coffee shop watched in stunned silence. I paid for my coffee and walked out into the sunshine. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The courtroom was packed every day, filled with curious locals, journalists, and victims who had traveled from other states to see justice finally served. Thomas Hancock testified about his mother and sister. Dorothy, now 80, had written a letter that was read aloud, describing how Marcus had stolen not just her money, but her daughter's ability to trust. Another victim came forward, a man from Scranton whose father had suffered a stroke after discovering Marcus's betrayal. And Rachel testified, "My brave, beautiful daughter stood in front of the jury and described how she had been manipulated, gaslit, and deceived by a man she loved. He made me doubt my own father," she said, her voice steady. "He made me choose him over my family. That's something I'll carry with me forever." Marcus sat at the defendant's table, stripped of his expensive suit, his charm powerless. Victoria had already taken a plea deal and testified against him. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon. Guilty on all counts. Marcus was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, with restitution ordered to all of his victims. As the bailiffs led him away in handcuffs, Marcus turned to look at me one last time. I held his gaze without flinching, without smiling, without gloating. I didn't need to say anything. We both knew who had won. After the trial, Rachel moved back to the house on our property. She threw herself into running Peterson construction with an energy I hadn't seen since before she met Marcus. One evening, we sat on the back porch, watching the sun set over the 30 acres that were still ours, still in our family, where they belonged. Rachel turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Dad, for not giving up on me, for fighting even when I pushed you away." I took her hand, the same hand I'd held when she took her first steps, when she graduated high school, when she signed her partnership papers. "That's what fathers do, sweetheart. We fight for our children, even when they don't want us to." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we watched the last light fade from the sky. A year later, Peterson Construction landed the biggest contract in our history, a new community center for Madison County, designed by local architects and built by local workers. Rachel led the project from start to finish. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the mayor called her a pillar of our community and a testament to family values. I stood in the back of the crowd, watching my daughter shake hands and smile for cameras. She caught my eye and waved. I waved back, my heart fuller than it had been in years. The sweetest revenge wasn't seeing Marcus in handcuffs or hearing the guilty verdict. The sweetest revenge was watching my daughter rise from the ashes, stronger and wiser than before. I learned something important through all of this. Trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired. But love, real love, can survive anything. It can wait through doubt and anger and disbelief. It can endure when everything else falls apart. And in the end, that's what saved us. Not the evidence or the lawyers or the police. It was the love between a father and daughter that no con man could ever destroy. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. I hope it reminds you to trust your instincts, protect your family, and never let anyone take what's rightfully yours. God bless you all.